We have one more session coming up, which is our speaker panel. So I'd like to welcome all of the speakers back up to the stage. Let's give the speakers a round of applause for all the great talks today. I think one of the best parts about conferences is just going and being inspired by some of the techniques and the people that are up here. And I think each talk today has really covered that. So I'm interested to hear more about some of their opinions on the world of Swift, the world of technology. So I'm going to pass it over to our moderator, Louis De La Rosa. Let's welcome Louis.
Overtime.
Hello, everyone. Hello again. All right.
No one wants to sit next to me.
Because your talk was too fast.
Sit next to you.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. All right. Yeah, I think, I don't know, at conferences like this, I'm always interested to know a little bit more about the speakers because, I don't know, after hearing people talk, I'm always just more interested in seeing, like, what makes people tick.
I'm awkward.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're over there? All right, cool. So I'll just start off, and we'll just go around and just say, like, your name, like, what you work on, where you live and work, and then we'll go from there. Actually, you have, like...
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so hello, I'm Elliot. I just did a talk. I don't know if you were here. I live and work in New York City. I'm a consultant. I do mobile apps, a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. Was there anything else to that?
No, that's good. That's
good. Great.
Yeah, I'm Christian Vieira. I gave the AR talk with my wife. Unfortunately, she had to go back to the Organization of American States, but she wishes she could be here. We both live here in Washington, D.C. Well, I say here, but you know the area. We live on Capitol Hill. I do Android development. I'm expanding into iOS development. I do quite a bit of contracting, and I work on my apps, Physics Toolbox.
Hi, everyone. I am Miriam Friedel. I gave a talk earlier this morning about machine learning and iOS apps. I lead the data science team at Scafos. So I do some model building, some integration, some strategic stuff. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is about 2 hours drive if there's no traffic. And I'm going to leave right after this, so there will be a lot of traffic.
Hi, I'm Daniel Steinberg. I'm based in Cleveland, which is not where you want to go, but it's on the way to where you want to go. I'm a contractor, consultant, writer, trainer, and come from a background in mathematics and radio.
That was awesome. Hi, I'm Jamie Newberry. I did that keynote earlier, so you kind of have an idea of everything I've ever done in my entire life. But yeah, I make clothes in Las Vegas, Nevada. I still do a fair amount of coaching and training and speaking as well, so yeah.
I'm Kevin Cassidy. I'm an iOS developer at Capital One, but over in their San Francisco office. Actually, my talk was inspired by some stuff that we came across working on sharing some authentication code across a bunch of internal teams.
West Coast.
Yeah. Jamie Pinkham. I live in Richmond, and I work for Capital One on like the platform team.
Cool. And I guess I should introduce myself in case people don't watch any of the other videos. I'm Louis De La Rosa. I've organized this conference since the beginning, hence why sometimes people call it LouisConf, because it was like iPhone DevCampDC, then iPad DevCampDC, and I work here at Capital One leading up some mobile teams, and in my spare time I play with my 7 kids, and I just randomly heal people in Overwatch, so if you play that game and you're getting healed, you're welcome. We have an interesting logistical thing. We have 2 Jamies on the panel, so I think we worked out that Jamie far on the left, or I guess it's on your right.
Jamie.
Far Jamie.
Far Jamie.
Okay, actually we could go with that. But I was planning to go with Jamie because that's her Twitter handle, and mine is Louis. So it's kind of a thing. All right, cool. So yeah, let's start off with something interesting. So I've heard some interesting stories, and I think people have had some good fun facts but I think there's maybe some other more interesting stories to tell. I heard somebody ran a marathon dressed as Darth Vader.
That was me.
James?
It was a half
James James?
marathon,
Half
a Disney
marathon.
one. I did run a full marathon, but not dressed as Darth Vader. But,
Okay, cool.
I did run a half marathon, a Disney Star Wars marathon a few years back, dressed as Darth Vader. Not the heavy version, just like a light Halloween version. And they had the little hat, but yeah. So yeah, I got my picture with a stormtrooper. It was very
Nice.
cool along the way. Yeah, that was fun. Fun fact.
Awesome, awesome, very cool. And I think somebody else ran. I think it's almost like 2 marathons.
Walked.
Jamie? Oh, okay.
Walked. So one of the things I like to do is to see how far I can push myself physically. And my friend came up to me and said, "Hey, GoRuck's doing this thing where you have to walk 50 miles in 20 hours." And what we had to do, we just got a map from the people, and it just had a bunch of waypoints, and the distances between all the waypoints added up to roughly about 52 miles. We had 20 hours to do it, and we had to walk with about 20 to 30 pounds in the pack. It took me and my friend 19 hours and 45 minutes to finish. So we just finished, and it was a completion rate, I think, it was the first one they did, and the completion rate, I think, was like 20%.
Wow.
I couldn't walk for 3 days. Adam and Avery, my coworkers back there, saw me in some pretty dire straits even a week later.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I mean, I can barely get 10,000 steps in 24 hours.
I wish I had worn a Fitbit to see how many steps it was, but yeah, the first part of it was like 13 miles out and back on the canal, on the whatever the canal is that's right here.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Elliot, I think you have a fun fact. Maybe not as extreme pushing yourself, but
yeah. Well, so
maybe.
My original fun fact was the 2-time Arizona state champion in saber fencing, but I prepared a list of fun facts just for instances like this. And my other fun fact is that I am proficient in Icelandic. Just randomly, I studied there briefly when I was in high school. And I actually got interviewed on their local their national news station. It's all local in Iceland, because I had learned the language quickly. So it's something that I'm actually now binge watching. It's a series called Trapped, and it's a crime drama set in Iceland, and it's delightful. Highly recommend. It has English subtitles, so it's enjoyable for all.
Good segue. Good segue. That's our next question.
Yeah.
We live in the era of. I still go to movies because I have that A-list thing, but most people watch a lot of TV. There's so much content nowadays. So I don't know. I always find it interesting to see like what people are binge watching. So I don't know. Christian, do you?
Well, what I binge watch repeatedly with my wife is The Office. It's one of the few. We have a 8-year-old daughter, so a lot of the new shows are not quite age appropriate if she's around, and she barely sleeps nowadays, so she's awake the same hours as we are. So the things we watch, we try to make sure it's like PG-13 at least. So yes, we watch The Office, and once it ends, we restart it again.
Nice. Miriam, any?
So I don't usually binge watch just because I find that I'm usually too exhausted to watch more than 30 minutes of TV at a time. But there's 2 shows I have watched recently which I really enjoy. One is Queer Eye. I've been watching that with my daughter, so that is really awesome. And I also watched the first season of Dead to Me with Christina Applegate, which is it's on Netflix, it's these little 30-minute bite-sized chunks. And the relationship between the 2 main characters, who are both women, the acting is very nuanced, and the way the story unfolds was not what I expected, so I really enjoyed that a lot. I think they're having a 2nd season, so. Cool. And that one I watch when my kids are in bed and is not child appropriate.
I think Jamie wants to chime in here too.
Oh, I can chime in. I did watch that as well. I'm actually like a pretty big binge watcher. It's like I don't know, I like TV and I work while I watch TV. So, but anyway, Better Call Saul. Like, I can watch it repeatedly. I love it. I can just start it over from season 1 and watch it all the way. I'm eager for the next season, and yeah, I love that one.
Cool, cool. Any other favorite series out there?
Well, I mean, a good segue into hers is mine's Breaking Bad.
That's a great one.
So that's my favorite show. Like if a genie popped in front of me and was like, you can have one wish, it would be to erase the memory of watching Breaking Bad so I could watch it again for the first time. My Slack handle at work is not Jesse Pinkman because Jamie Pinkham is really close to Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah. There is something magical about seeing like a series for the first time. Yeah. True, very true. Speaking about wishes, if you could, get one wish, what would it be? But keep it related to like Xcode and iOS.
For it to work, that would be nice. Yeah.
Any specific part?
I love Swift. I love the language, but I certainly think that it has outpaced Xcode. There's plenty of other developer experiences where like the error messages aren't as opaque and crazy and weird, and it doesn't. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be. Like SourceKit doesn't crash as much, but it'd be nice, if it worked pretty reliably. So I know that's like an easy hot take, but Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I have two. One of them, I say two because I haven't checked recently because I just gave up. But the first one is, for the longest time, whenever I tried to click on a variable and say refactor, if it was in Swift, it would say, we can't do that. We can only do it in Objective-C. So if they haven't fixed that, then that's the one. Sorry? Yay! Okay, good.
A year ago.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I gave up. I just stopped looking. And the second one is, so I have a confession. I am also an Android developer. And in Android, if you want to go from Java to Kotlin, you just press 4 buttons, and it converts it automatically to Kotlin. And I would love the same thing for Objective-C, because I have a lot of legacy code for clients and for other things that I would love to just be able to press a button and have it make a Swift interface version, or a Swift version of that same class. Just sort of to give me a starting point to make it more Swifty from there.
So if I could just leap to my feet and say, oh my God, no. The number of people who think they're writing in Swift by just translating Objective-C to Swift,
it's a starting point.
No, I really disagree strongly with it. I think when you write Swift code, it has to be friendly to that language and take advantage of functional things and the things that Swift is really built for. That if you want to write OBC code, you should write it in OBC. It's still a beautiful language, but just transliterating, it's like me taking a dictionary to France and looking at word by word. It's not going to sound like French to anybody.
Sure, sure. I will agree to disagree. But he is also, you should listen to him because he definitely has more experience with this than I do. So, yes.
Daniel, what would your wish be?
So, because I'm Mr. Contrary, apparently, I also disagree with yours.
That's fine. Lots of people do. I'm used to it.
Because, Swift is evolving very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's amazing that we have demands. The error messages have been horrible. Mm-hmm. And they've gotten so much better, but they've gotten better because the tools team has had time to catch up. And so the Swift UI errors right now are just baffling. Mm-hmm. But I don't blame the tools team because Swift UI is still in flux. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the docs team, I expect better documentation. If Apple is really serious and devoted all this time to saying, we want you guys to come to Swift UI and combine, they should have provided us with a lot of docs and not just a couple sexy tutorials that don't do very much.
Yeah. That kind of leads into what my wish would be. I was thinking, I usually develop in unfamiliar, maybe even familiar ways in Swift with Xcode open on this monitor and the Swift open source open on this monitor. I'm always digging down in there. And not to bring up the A word again, but I think when I was doing Android development, I think I had a plugin that lets you click down as if it was your own code to see the source of what you were working on. Mm-hmm. Now I know obviously I'm not going to get source of foundation right there in Xcode, but it certainly has been so helpful for me to be able to look on GitHub and see the Swift source. But if that was even tighter integrated, I could maybe rely a little less on the docs or lack thereof too.
And as a longtime Apple developer, being able to look at that Swift source has been magical.
It's, yeah.
You know, people say, well, how do you know how map is implemented? You can look.
Yep.
Cool. Now, we heard a lot of really cool topics today, like Swift UI, some thoughts on Combine, a lot of functional programming, which is near and dear to my heart. But there was a lot of announcements at DubDub this year. Are there any that you think kind of like went under the radar that you kind of want to highlight to people? Christian?
Yeah, well, I was
Daniel?
thinking, as a user, my daughter was using my iPhone XS, and I installed the beta of the latest beta of iOS, and I got this notification that a random game, free game she installed was getting the GPS location in the background, and being able to see how many times and where it was calling it. It's, I think for users, it'll be wonderful. Just privacy is very important.
Maybe help with battery too.
Help with battery, yeah.
That's good. Daniel?
Yeah, I think Swift UI and Combine sort of overshadowed a lot of announcements. The Swift Package Manager is huge. That, I think, is going to be a very important one, not just because of what it replaces, but the integration, both with Xcode and GitHub and all the way through. And people that I've seen embrace it, I've taken classes where they point me at a package and it installs it, and it's just magical.
Yeah. I got to use Swift Package Manager on Raspberry Pi, just to see how we can apply our Swift skills to IoT, and I was like so pleased with it, and then disappointed when I couldn't, realized I couldn't use it in Xcode yet, but now we can. So that's good. Any other things to point out?
I have one. It's a little machine learning, kind of nerdy. So it was
Sure.
by the Turi Create team. And they have implemented something for what's called one-shot object detection. So in my talk earlier today, I was talking about the data and how generating the data is like always the biggest pain. And object detection is the type of machine learning where you can, like I would hold my camera up and it would draw a box around that chair and be like, this is a chair and this is a TV and this is a person. And the data collection for that is massive. And so what the one-shot object detection does is you take a picture of one thing, you give it one picture, and then it automatically puts it on all of these different backgrounds, right? And so it makes the data collection a lot easier. Now, it's not perfect, and actually we've this week run into a bunch of problems implementing it, and there's a lot happening in the Turi Create GitHub thread, so they're on the case. But to me, I was very excited to see that because it's something that can help make the data collection piece a lot easier, and I think it's something that it was I think on the last day and kind of buried in some of the sessions there, but I was excited about that.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, let's see. So just kind of switching gears. We talked a lot about getting up to speed with all the WWDC videos and different documentation that we read. But I know being a complete developer or complete person, there's stuff we can learn from other fields, right? Especially books and things like that. Are there any books from other fields that you recommend to people that just helped you?
It may not, I don't know if it's really from another field, but it applies some stuff from another field, and it's, I'm gonna butcher his name, Bartosz Milowski's Category Theory for Programmers is a fantastic book if you want to understand why, how category theory applies to programming. I usually get through 11 chapters before my brain just explodes, but sort of understanding how, why structs are product types and why enums are OR types and how the formulation of all that happens and all the foundations that category theory sort of provides you that you don't know that you're using when you're writing code, but then when someone shows it to you, you're like, oh, okay, that's why that works that way.
He also has about 40 hours of videos on YouTube from lectures on the same series.
Any of that content's really great. So that's probably something that sits in my to-read folder in my documents that I crack open every once in a while when I get bored. So if
Nice.
And it's freely available, so you can just go and download it, and I think it's on GitHub somewhere. Definitely take a look.
Cool.
Yeah.
Elliot?
So a while ago, so my father and I were sort of starting to manage people at the same time. Like we had both grown in our careers to that point. And so we started a book club because we're both bad at managing. So we did a book club on a bunch of books about how to manage, how to deal with people. And so the book that sort of comes immediately to mind is a book called Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards. It's a great book. It's a lot about like networking, working with different personalities in a business perspective, but also just sort of like how to be a nice person. And in addition to sort of like win friends and influence people and all those like classics, that one's a really cool one because they have a lot of they've done a lot of research and science of like recording networking events from above and like seeing the people who met all the other people and how they started out and doing interviews with them, and so like they're getting the science behind why things work that they've provided as advice. So really cool book. That's definitely the one that I would recommend.
Cool. Captivate. Nice.
Yeah.
I think so much of what we do in our career is communicating. So any book on writing, I listen to a lot of podcasts on screenwriting. I think that helps me more than anything else.
Nice. Any specific podcasts?
Lots of them.
Okay. Sure.
I would actually echo what Daniel just said. I don't have a specific book about writing necessarily, but I think writing is such a critical skill in communicating, even as technical people. I think it's something that I'm always working to build my own skills in because I think it's so critical.
All right, and then something also that's interesting is just finding out how people kind of got into their field, and then if you have advice for people who are interested in going into that field. And I think maybe Miriam, we'll start off with you.
Yeah.
Data science.
Yeah, sure. So how I got into this field was sort of by accident. I have a PhD in physics. I worked as a management consultant after that. I worked in a neuroimaging lab. Then I went to a data science consultancy about 5 years ago, which is how I got into the field of machine learning. And I've been in my current position about a little over a year. I think what I would say if you're interested in machine learning is really what you need is, I think, to be curious and interested in how things work. And don't, there's a lot of tools and technologies and tutorials. I talked about Python, and we're not going to debate. I know Far Jamie over there hates Python, and that's totally okay. But it is a language if you want to lose machine learning. Use machine learning, get comfortable with it. And I think the other thing, so go to conferences, ask people. There's tons of stuff online. I really like Medium, actually. I don't know if you guys know that site. There's a lot of great content in there, technical, non-technical, but there's a lot of good machine learning tutorials on there. But I think really just being curious and also knowing if you are interested in the mathematics behind machine learning, you can go delve into that. You need calculus and linear algebra, and it's awesome, but you don't have to do that. I was talking with someone earlier today, to integrate machine learning and to actually do it and just set up a simple prototype, you don't need to delve into any of the mathematics. But I think mainly an intellectual curiosity and a willingness to learn more than anything else, which is a terrible answer because they're so non-specific, and I'm sorry.
That's why it's a good answer too,
Yeah.
though, because it kind of doesn't matter what you decide to do.
Yeah.
If you're curious, you can go design clothes, which I never set out to do, but here I am. And it's just a curiosity and a hunger to learn. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated with a metal sculpture degree, I never thought I'd be like in web design a couple of years later. Mm-hmm. So it was like, yeah, it's crazy, but I think hunger and curiosity and fascination and pursuing it will lead you down amazing. And you know what? I was going to add the word magical, which I've heard like 16 times today. I don't know if anybody else noticed. The word magic kept coming up in like several talks and then a few times today. Anyway, but yeah, it can lead you in magical places. It's crazy.
Cool. Daniel, how did you get started in teaching?
I drove 50 miles in 20 hours once.
You've written and taught a lot. How did you get started in that?
So I went to college to be a high school math teacher. That's all I wanted to do. And then I decided I wanted to change the way math was taught because I thought it wasn't good. So I went and got a PhD in math, and I wanted to bridge the worlds between math ed and math, and they don't talk to each other. And it's not particular to math. Art and art history don't talk to each other. If you've run Cocoa Heads or something, you can either get the academics to show up or the people working. You can't get them both. It's very hard to bridge these worlds. And about that time, it was harder to get jobs, and we wanted to keep our kids near their grandparents. And so I can always change what I did, and so that's how I ended up in computer science, came into Java, which I think is where I met you.
Yeah. Way back when.
Many, many years ago. And just have been there, and at some point was lucky enough to make the switch from Java to Objective-C the year before the iPhone shipped. And so it just, timing was wonderful. So I got to Java just in time, I got to Objective-C just in time, and then a couple of us were watching Objective-C and said, I think Apple's working on a new language. And so we formed a study group and prepared ourselves by studying languages we thought were going to be close.
Yeah.
And so when Swift shipped, so it's been a lot of lucky guesses and willingness to change.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
a good.
Yeah, that's
Very
also a good
prescient.
one.
That's amazing.
You know, just on that, my daughter just graduated from college, and one of the only pieces of advice I gave her, because I hate people that give advice, was it doesn't matter what you major in. Most of the people I know aren't working in the fields they majored in.
That's
And
true.
just be willing to keep learning. And I'm really old, and the iPhone not only didn't exist when I was coming out of college, it was many years after that. I mean, the things that I'm doing for a living, I know, you guys are so young, but the first computer I programmed on filled an entire room and was less powerful than my watch. This has been an amazing life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had like 5 careers myself. Like small talk and Java and so forth. Speaking about getting into Objective-C and Swift, like, Jamie, how did you get into like Objective-C and Swift?
Far
You mean
Jamie.
far, Jamie?
Far Jamie.
Far Jamie, yes.
How did I get into it? So I was a .NET developer at like some consultancy, and I was like the only guy who had Mac, and I was that weirdo with the white iBook, and the only reason I had that is because I wanted an iPod at the time, and they only worked for Macs, and so I was like, well, iPods are cool. I'll just get this Mac, and
That's the halo effect.
yeah. And so when the iPhone came out, I was like, that's pretty cool. It's too bad they all have to be web apps. And then 2.0 came out, and I was just like, I'm going to learn how to do this. And I remember watching Michael Jurowitz, like all those videos that he put out on how to do it. And I just, at nighttime, would just watch these. And I got lucky enough that like a company in Richmond was involved in writing the first Tumblr app. And so I helped them, and then just get kind of snowballed from there. And then now I'm sitting on a stage talking about it, so I don't know. Like,
Nice.
But yeah, it was just, being willing. Like, I think the theme that everyone's saying is like being open to learning and putting in the work too. Right? It just doesn't come for free.
Yeah. Kevin, how did you get into?
Yeah, so I majored in chemical engineering, and I had luckily good people to work with, but I was never really that into the work itself. But in my free time, eventually I made, I'm gonna say the A word again, I made an Android app, and you just selected what was in your Chipotle burrito, and it made a little nutrition fact label, like just way, way back. And it got, like 50,000 downloads or so, and Chipotle liked it so much that they insisted that I take it down immediately. And
that's when you know somebody really likes your app.
right, yeah. But I was able to use that to prove to people that I kind of knew what I was doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Story.
And then was it easy to go to iOS after that from Android?
That was another happenstance. In one of my early kind of contracting gigs, day one I showed up and they said, well, actually it needs to be iPhone, not Android. And I said, you know what, that's great. And I went and turned my HP laptop into a Hackintosh. And after like a month, I got a MacBook, and yeah.
That's awesome.
Christian, I know you started off with Android. How did you get into that, and then how did you
Yeah, well,
start with iOS too?
you know, Android is typical. I got a degree in computer science, and then opportunities come, and I started doing Android development, and then iOS happened mostly because I reached like 1 million some downloads and a massive number in Android users. When my wife and I would go to a conference abroad, Android is huge abroad.
Yeah.
Like 85% of the world phones. Go there, everybody uses my stuff. I go to a conference here, it's very, very difficult. So I started, I said, I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
So I got it out of need to expand the market.
Yeah. Well, the first Apple Store was here, so that's part of it. And Elliot, how did you get started in iOS development?
In iOS development, so I had applied to a job because they were like, oh, we need Android developers, because I was doing Android at first. I was in grad school at the time, looking for my first job. And they said, oh, yeah, no, never mind about the Android thing. Could you send us an iOS prototype? You have a week. And so I was like, okay. So I took a week. I was, teaching classes and also taking classes and studying for finals and learning iOS. And it was awful. It was so bad. It was such a bad app. As I recall, the prototype cells, I made a different, for each table, I filled in all of the prototype cells with the actual title. And then when you clicked on it, it would say, oh, well, it's this prototype cell, and so that's what it was. It was really, really bad. But I went in for the interview, and the guy said, yeah, you seem to do some things a little bit strangely, but the people who reviewed your code said that you wrote some clean code, so tell me about your iOS experience. And I was like, well, this is my first, I just learned it. And he's like, what? And he checks his notes. He's like, yeah, no, that's you. Okay, all right, well. And I ended up not taking that job. I ended up working somewhere else. But yeah, I just sort of tripped and fell into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were a quick learner.
I mean, again, it was horrible. It was really, really bad. But I learned the next startup. They gave me some time to learn it and do it properly and watch videos from Stanford, and I did that. So,
yeah. I think people might have heard this before, but I was just in terms of how I got into iOS. I was doing Mac programming for fun, just because there weren't really that many apps. There was no kind of app store back then. And so I was just kind of doing what I loved and just teaching myself at night. And then the iPhone came out, and then apparently Objective-C, you can make money, and that was really novel to us back then. So I said, okay, let's do that. Let's see. So I think some people are working on some cool stuff that's coming out later this year. I don't know if anybody wants to kind of tell us about some stuff that's coming out.
Apparently not.
Yeah, look at you, Daniel.
Daniel, do you want to tell us
I'm
about?
working on a book, but who isn't?
I'm not working on a book,
because
actually.
people want videos, I've been threatening to experiment with videos for a long time. So you've seen the kind of talks I give with the slides. That'll be the video. My face won't be in it. It'll just be slides animating as I talk about code.
Great.
Because
what's the old joke? You had a face for radio?
for many years I have.
Cool. Okay, we'll be on the lookout for that.
Thank you.
I can talk about two things. So one is I talked about the Boot Finder today, which was one app, but we're building out some more examples. And one is actually with one-shot object detection. So it's going to be called Dashlight, I think, and it should be coming out soon, where you take a picture of, say something lights up on your dashboard of your car, and you're like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know where the manual is. It will identify it based on a picture and then link you to relevant content about oh, this is a tire pressure light. Perhaps you should just, go to the Exxon station and fill it up. Or this is your check engine light. Probably you should call a mechanic, right? So, we're going to be building out a suite of example apps. And the other thing we're also working on is a podcast, an applied machine learning podcast to talk to people about actual business use cases of machine learning. So that's something that is in development as well.
That's great. That's great.
My company, in addition to working with clients, we also build our own apps. And for the longest time, we made some very, very boring subway apps. But recently, so I live in New York currently, and the subway, if you've ever experienced it, is ridiculous. So one of the big problems is you can't rely on the predictions that they give you. Like, they are often wrong, and I have lots of tweets about that. So one of the things that I'm doing is I've created an app that does crowdsourcing. And so right now on the app, if you download it today, it will just tell you like, oh, someone spotted the train, a couple stops away. So like, oh, okay, it says it's in 4 minutes and it was 2 stops away now. Sure, maybe that's reasonable. But one of the big things that I'm really excited about working on with that is I'm actually taking that crowdsourcing and changing it from like, oh, it's nearby, to predicting when it's actually going to arrive. So I'm using AI to do that, using some TensorFlow. Looking forward to trying out your stuff.
Yeah, which you can use with TensorFlow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping it will be a good thing for commuters in the New York subway.
Cool. And where would people go to look for those apps?
Yeah,
like, what would they search for?
So on iOS, I believe if you search for like NYC subway, I'm like the second result after the ads. So like the ads, and then there's my main competitor, and then me. It's just called Subway NYC. It has a bright pink icon. It's hard to miss. And then the other one is on Android. There are like 2 ads, and then there are like 3 other things, although one of the other things is also me, but it's just not one that I'm proud of. And then again, a bright pink icon it's the last one before the fold if you search for NYC subway on Android. So.
Cool.
Oh, I suppose also you can just visit subwaynyc.app, and that'll give you the links directly.
Okay,
to them.
there we go. There we go.
Duh. Okay. Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Cool. I like that.
A website.
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm curious, like, how many domains do we have now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I may have some stashed away. Let's see. So, Christian, I think a lot of people are familiar with the term Sherlocking, which is it's kind of like our community term when, like, again, you make something so good that Apple kind of includes it in the operating system. I think Google did something similar with one of your apps.
Yeah, so, on Android, I have a fairly popular app in education. It's a niche market, but it's fairly big. And 3 years ago, I suddenly saw that Neil deGrasse Tyson was advertising on his show an app made by Google that seemed to do like 90% of what my Android app was doing. And I got contacted by teachers in San Francisco from the Exploratorium that Google brought them together, like physics teachers. We need to build this app pointing to my app as the example. And they did. Google gathered a team. They built an app. They spent a lot of money in it. They spent a lot of money in having bands like OK Go to make some videos in YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Advertise their app like, oh, we're doing these things, giving it to teachers, sponsoring like podcasts, like YouTube channels, like Physics Girl. If you're into physics and stuff, they were spending a lot of money. Their app was everywhere, like in Gadget, Verge. They got like 100,000 downloads in one day. Since then, nothing, no engagement, and they're still working on it. I don't know what they do. Because my wife sometimes like, Christian, what did you do all day if this is the only thing you produce? They've been working on that thing for 3 years with one whole team. Plus they outsourced to an iOS team. So no, that's a story, and I do feel good about it.
Okay, but you're still going strong, which is good.
I'm still going strong, and I'll be, everything I talked about AR, I'll be releasing open source this year once so Jamie doesn't get upset with me. I stopped doing a massive view controller in a couple of months.
I can get behind that.
Yeah. I love the speaker interaction. I think maybe that massive view controller slide really hit home with some of us.
I hope so.
And
tests are good. I mean, they kind of like validate that the stuff that you did is right. So it's probably a pretty good idea, like write tests. Yeah. I was not a unit test guy. Like I was never that. And then I had my opinion changed pretty recently, actually, by Jeff, a guy that worked here, and he was in the Seattle office. And you know, it's actually kind of fun to, I call it chasing the dragon. I'll tell them, like, what are you guys doing today? And I'm like, I'm chasing that dragon, coverage dragon. So, and you know, part of that is like better architectures. When you write code with testing in mind at first, and I'm not talking about TDD where you write the test like reg ream refactor. I'm just talking about writing code so that you can test it. You end up writing better code, just generally. It's less sort of intermingled.
Lots more functions.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Jamie, great keynote again this morning.
Thank you.
The live streaming part was pretty cool, especially. Like, could you tell us more about that in case other people are interested in doing live streaming?
Yeah, I don't know if you have anything specific that you'd want to ask, but we started live streaming, as I showed, in May, earlier this year. And we started just kind of messing around with it with like Instagram stories. We wanted to expose more behind the scenes to show who's making your stuff, how it's made, because we have nothing to hide. And you know, when you're on the internet, there's hate. So like, so people are like, you don't make those in the USA. You buy cheap overseas labor and print, you know, you do it evilly. And we were like, we're not evil, I promise. And like, here, just like take a look. So we'll, you know, show the camera around. But then we started doing Facebook's live streaming. That's where our community is. We have like 87,000 followers on Facebook. So we started doing it there, and then we discovered a software called Restream.io. And that allows us to broadcast like in multiple places, so like YouTube and Twitch. And so we've experimented with that, and as long as you're not monetizing, you're not violating their terms and conditions on multi-streaming at once, so be careful of those things. But we're not monetizing, we're just sharing information. And so yeah, we started doing that, and we've started making a few friends over on Twitch. But yeah, I really love it. I love that we have a panel right in front of me when we're doing it, a big TV screen basically, where I can see all the comments. They're streamed in from all the various channels. So I can you know, address them by name and answer their questions, and it's just a lot of fun. And people, you know, from the time we started, we're getting 1,000 to 2,000 views per live stream. So it was pretty sweet, and we'll continue. I'm obviously not doing it when I'm not there, and I try to continue with the stories. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been phenomenal for us as a brand, I think, for people to get to see the human side of us.
Yeah, I think that's cool that like to really show that transparency, like really how you make it. It's fascinating.
And it's fun. Like I really love the cutting part of it. Like I never thought that I would love doing that, but I love it so much. And like that's what people are like, oh, and then they get the opportunity. See, I get so excited. But they get the opportunity to see more of the artwork that comes through, which I get to see all of it almost all the time.
Yeah.
But not everybody gets to. Usually we only share what people send. You know, here's a picture of my kid in their dress, and we share those. But now we get to share way more. So we're looking into some, like elaborating on that process, because there's, you know, like maybe being able to tag their order and watch it go through the process.
Oh,
so
that'd be cool.
That's something we're exploring on the backside.
And do you live stream like on a regular basis?
Usually like Tuesdays and Fridays, but we don't have a set schedule. We're kind of like, can we get in there and get it done? Yes. Do we have enough orders to like make a full print run today and make it worth it? Or do we conserve our power energy and you know, just do one run on Friday or whatever? So yeah, usually Tuesdays and Fridays we have streaming at surprise times. But yeah, but they always post, and you can watch them after the fact too. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'll go check some out. We're coming to the end, so I guess I'll just give everybody, you know, a minute or two to kind of, you know, do your shout outs or, you know, words of wisdom, or, you know, maybe drop your URL.
Great. Then again, if there's one piece of advice I can give you all, really do check out pointfree.co. They're not paying me for it. I really do mean it. They're just really good. Very interesting stuff. My company just rebranded. It didn't make it to all of the things because it's so new, but we're now Lithobyte Co. So it's lithobyte.co, lithobyte.co. Yeah, you know, be curious, like they were saying. I think that's good advice.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so now everybody can go ahead. If you really want to learn more about quaternions, you know, recap on your linear algebra math, feel free to follow us, Physics Toolbox, or look us up on Medium. We have been posting some articles about it. You know, Physics Toolbox, Viera software, you can find it on Medium. You know, we all need to learn a little bit more math and challenge our misconceptions.
That's good. Thanks, Richard.
I love math. So we are at scoffos.ai, also on Medium. I'm on Twitter as well. I think, you know, the advice, be curious. And I think one thing that was in Jamie's talk at the end, you know, she had her list of things. And number one is the same for me, be the best mom I can be. But the last one I think was, if it seems really scary, do it. And I think that, you know, being open to new opportunities is sometimes scary and you're outside of your comfort zone, but exciting and unexpected things can happen, so.
Awesome.
I'm dim sum thinking everywhere. And when I was teaching and doing math, that's where I developed a quote that Jamie was kind enough to quote today, and I mean it for everything. It is hard, and you can do it.
I love that quote. I love that quote because, yeah, I mean, I don't know, in my story today, it took years, like I spanned years, right, of time in that to get where I am, and I never really set out to do it, but like everything that I do scares me to some degree. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time, but I explore with wide-eyed wonder, and I try to do things that scare me, and I just like get excited to learn. So I don't know, I encourage people to do that, like and reach out, like feel free to reach out anytime. Jamie, like the Twitters, the Facebooks, through our website. I have to call it that because I'm over 40.
Yes.
So. But yeah, all the social medias, you can reach me very easily. I'm always happy to have a conversation with folks. It's always fun and I appreciate it.
Yeah, all the, yeah.
The Twitters
Right?
and the Facebooks.
All of the media's social. I'm Kevin Cassidy Jr. pretty much everywhere. I don't have a SoundCloud to plug or anything, but
That would be cool.
I should though. That's my other big interest is playing music in my free time.
Awesome.
But yeah, I gotta go back to view source. That was something you said this morning, and I was thinking about it. That's how I got into all this. Like I said, I went to school for chemical engineering, but I just started pulling apart all the source I could find for anything I could download and take apart and try to figure out how it worked.
Yeah.
And that's invaluable. And a lot of the stuff I'm most proud of that I've done along the way has been contributing back and helping out tons of other people, just often with nothing in return other than that satisfaction. So, yeah, contribute back.
Oh, look, we're out of time. Oh, man, that's too bad. I had something really profound to say, but we're just out of time. Honestly, I don't have anything profound. Everything everybody else said, yep. So there you go. Just be curious, go out, do things, learn, poke life. That was awesome. And I don't know, meditate.
Nice.